Mission accomplished, but farewell Rosetta, one of the most complicated space missions ever undertaken, comes to a close with a crash landing. This is the moment Mission Control learned that after an historic 12-year journey, the probe's useful life was over. After giving us extraordinary insight into the origin of the solar system, the space probe landed on the very comet it had been studying.
Being too many was historic, was pioneering, and revolutionizing at the moment how we understand comets and the solar system.
We'll be live from Mission Control in Darmstadt, Germany, with the very latest, also this lunchtime. 1 year on since Russia intervened in Syria's civil war, human rights groups say their airstrikes have killed 9,000 people. World leaders attend the state funeral of the last of Israel's founding fathers, Shimon Peres. Among the mourners, President Obama paid tribute to the former president and prime minister. The wealth gap, why today's 30-somethings are twice as poor as their predecessors. And melting hearts in Canada. Princess Charlotte joins Prince George for their first official joint engagement, a children's tea party.
Here, Southampton Football Club's assistant manager denies newspaper allegations he offered advice on how to bribe officials. And we'll have the latest in the hunt for two men who abducted and raped a schoolgirl in Oxford.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. The Rosetta satellite has ended its historic journey into deep space by crash landing on the comet it has studied for the past 2 years. The probe has gathered unique data, pictures and measurements to reveal the structure and chemistry of Comet 67P, nearly 4 billion miles away. Rosetta's 12-year mission to explore the origins of the solar system has been a huge success for the European Space Agency. Well, in a moment, we'll be live at Mission Control in Germany. But first, our science correspondent, Palab Ghosh.
Delight at Mission Control for the end of one of the most audacious missions in the history of space exploration. The Rosetta spacecraft has just gently crashed on the comet it's been tracking for 2 years.
I declare hereby the mission operations ended for Rosetta. This is a culmination of tremendous scientific and technical success for this mission.
And it was just the same 2 years ago. Scientists couldn't contain their joy when Rosetta sent down a probe to land on the comet. Unfortunately, it bounced off the surface and crash-landed in a dark ravine. Without solar power, its batteries failed, and it wasn't able to collect and analyse the samples from the comet's surface. But the orbiting Rosetta spacecraft did send back some of the most detailed and spectacular pictures ever taken of a comet. It collected enough data to keep scientists busy for decades.
It's absolutely an Apollo moment in terms of exploration, and it's just a game changer in how we explore the solar system. And it's that next piece in that jigsaw puzzle of asking those really fundamental questions of who we are, where did we come from, why did we exist, is there life, in our solar system, beyond our solar system?
These are among Rosetta's final pictures as it plunged to the surface. It's the end of an incredible mission, but the beginning of a new understanding of how comets and the planets in our solar system were created. Palab Ghosh, BBC News.
Well, let's get the latest from our correspondent Rebecca Morel, who's at Mission Control in Germany for us. Rebecca.
Yes, well, for the team here, I think you can safely say this has been mission accomplished. This really is one of the most boldest pieces of exploration ever attempted. The idea was dreamt of back in the 1980s, and this idea of chasing a comet through the solar system, a 10-year journey, this idea of getting into orbit around it, and then of landing on it with a little robot, then landing on this again at the end of the mission. Well, people thought it couldn't be done, but it's got a legacy of science. It's transformed our understanding of comets. We thought they were just balls of ice and dust whizzing around, but this tells us there's so much more than that. But also also the legacy in terms of the way it's captured the public's imagination. Now, I'm joined by Professor Monica Grady from the Open University. We saw there your scenes of jubilation at the landing of Philae. How was it today?
It was very different today. There were interviews with people who'd been involved in the mission, and then the compere, who's also called Monica, she said, right, for the last 5 minutes, let's just watch things unfolding. Now, of course, we're not watching directly the spacecraft landing on a comet. We're watching the signal. So you've got 300 people watching this signal, and suddenly it wasn't there anymore. It died, and there was just a sort of sigh of sorrow. And then the Sylvain Lode, who is the spacecraft operations manager, he spoke for a bit, and then he very symbolically took off his headphones and put them to one side. And then there was a spontaneous standing ovation in the room. Everybody stood, and there was no cheering, it was just clapping, just in acknowledgement of the fantastic job that the spacecraft operations staff had done. Absolutely superb. And then we saw the images. Amazing images. The last one was 5 metres above the surface. Stupendous.
Well, Professor Grady, thank you very much. Definitely the end of a space era, and lots of tears, hugs and pats on the back. But the team can really be proud of what they've achieved.
Becky, thank you. The funeral has been held in Jerusalem for Shimon Peres, the man regarded by many as the last of the founding fathers of Israel. Dozens of heads of state were among those attending the ceremony. President Obama described him as a giant of the 20th century who pursued the dream of a lasting peace. Our Middle East correspondent Yolanda Nell is in Jerusalem for us. Yolanda.
Well, in total, there were 70 countries represented at the state funeral of Shimon Peres, who died 2 days ago at the age of 93. He had served in 12 Israeli cabinets. His time in politics spanned 7 decades, and he had friends all around the globe. A remarkable lineup of international leaders coming together to remember a remarkable long life. Prince Charles leading Britain's delegation. Some politicians flew across the world to pay tribute to Shimon Peres, the last of a generation of Israel's founding fathers. Others, like the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, were making a far shorter but even more rare trip to Jerusalem. The eulogies acknowledged the special status of Mr. Peres.
That so many leaders came from around the world to bid farewell to Shimon is a testament to his optimism, his quest for peace, his love of Israel.
Israelis are mourning a former president and prime minister, a career politician present for every historic moment since their country was created in 1948. Shimon Peres was the hawkish defense official who became a dove.
He knew exactly what he was doing with his dreams.
And when Bill Clinton was in the White House, Mr. Peres oversaw Israel's first peace accords with the Palestinians.
I don't believe he was naive, but he understood from hard-earned experience that true security comes through making peace with your neighbors.
Shimon Peres was laid to rest in Mount Herzl, Israel's national cemetery, taking his place alongside other Israeli leaders, with his family watching on. His death comes at a time when an end to Israel's decades-old conflict with the Palestinians seems more remote than ever, and his strong voice of optimism will be painfully missed. That handshake we saw between the Israeli and Palestinian leaders was something very unusual indeed, and already Mr. Abbas has been sharply criticised for it, attacked by his political rivals, the Islamist group Hamas, who accused him of betraying his people. But in his eulogy, President Obama said that Mr. Abbas's presence at the funeral was a reminder of the unfinished business of peace. Of course, his previous efforts to broker peace talks here broke down acrimoniously 2 years ago. But there are now new questions over whether he could try to lay out another vision before he leaves office at the start of next year.
Okay, Yolande, thank you. Firms in London and parts of southeast England are bracing themselves for large rises in their business rates as bills for the next 5 years are announced. Businesses in other parts of England and Wales are likely to see their rates fall. Our business correspondent Emma Simpson has more.
It's a big day for the owner of this small family DIY chain in central London. Business rates are his biggest cost after rent and wages.
Wow.
Vin Varas now upstairs in his office. He's just found out how much extra he'll have to pay.
Shocked this morning. I wasn't expecting 47,000. 30,000 we could have lived with over 5 years. This we can't. So I think I'm gonna have to look into this. This is bad.
Vin's not the only one facing a big increase in business rates. London is going to bear the brunt of these changes with some huge increases for some. Infrastructure and utilities will also be hit. BT says it could have to pay tens of millions of pounds extra next year and warns that bills for customers could go up. But as ever, there are winners as well as losers. Take Hull. When the financial crisis struck, rents plummeted, but business rates remained the same, and the high street has suffered. Many bills here will now be going down. Welcome news when it happens.
So what you've got in a number of places is, although you'll have significant reductions, the actual relief that would come is going to be phased in over a much longer period of probably 3, 4 or even 5 years.
So how's the government handled this?
This is a problem of their making in many ways, and what they should do is give the relief to the Midlands and the North immediately and actually help central London and these places that have had big increases and phase them in over a much longer period.
The government says the changes will ensure fairer bills. 3/4 of all companies will see no change or even a fall in their payment, it says. Scotland gets its revaluation next year. Northern Ireland's already been done. In England and Wales today, though, the swings have been huge. Emma Simpson, BBC News.
Police searching for the missing toddler Ben Needham on the Greek island of Kos have been asked by a landowner to stop digging up his land. A number of graves dating back 1,500 years have been found at the site where it's believed the 21-month-old boy went missing more than 20 years ago. Well, our correspondent Danny Savage is on the island. What exactly has happened?
Well, Kate, the scene here is not very encouraging at the moment. This should be a hive of activity and has been for